Welcome to Waukesha County GovCast, your source for what's happening in our vibrant community. I'm your host, Hillary Mintz, Public Information Officer.
And I'm Sean Lundy, Chief of Staff for Waukesha County Executive Paul Farrow.
Each episode, we dive into the latest news, community projects, and the initiatives shaping Waukesha County, where innovation meets public service. From in-depth discussions on local governance to county services, we're here to keep you informed and connected. So whether you're a resident, a business owner, or just curious about local government, join us for a closer look at the heart of your county. Welcome to Waukesha County GovCast. Today is Tuesday, March 4th. I'm your host, Hillary Mintz, along with Chief of Staff, Sean Lundy.
Hey, Hillary.
Hey. Well, we're once again diving into how county government operates and how it impacts your life living here in our community. And today, the topic is courts and our local judicial system. Now, we have a very special guest who will join us in just a bit. She became a household name here locally after presiding over a trial that attracted nationwide coverage, and she even inspired some Halloween costumes. Judge Jennifer Dorow is here with us today. But first, here's what's happening in Waukesha County. The county recently launched a brand new website, one that was designed to be more user-friendly and easy to navigate. Check it out at the same address, waukeshacounty.gov. Our sheriff's office is alerting the public about a jury duty scam floating around. Now, these are phone calls from scammers. They say they're from the sheriff's office and demanding personal financial information for failure to show for jury duty. But rest assured, these calls are not generated by the sheriff's department. And if you get one, you're asked to call police or our clerk of court's office at 262-548-7504. And if you've been to our courthouse recently, it's still pretty clear our construction project continues. But good news, next month, big milestone, the north-south wing will reopen, which means when you enter that public entrance at the front where the security screening is, you'll be able to walk right through to the court's tower rather than go downstairs and follow our yellow and blue dots through the courthouse, cafeteria, and through that courtyard tunnel. Now, speaking of getting to the court's tower...
What a perfect segue to our guest.
Well, we have today none other than Circuit Court Judge Jennifer Dorow. Welcome to GovCast. We are so excited you're here.
Thank you, Hillary. I'm excited to be here.
Now, we always start with a brief introduction of our guest. So tell us, Judge, how and why did you become a prosecutor? What made you make that switch to defense attorney and now judge?
When I was in law school, I did a variety of internships, and one of the internships was with the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office in Virginia Beach, Virginia. I happened to also be dating my now husband at the time, who is, at that point, had already been hired by the City of Waukesha Police Department. And I also had a professor who had been the Attorney General of Guam. He handled a seminal case, Illinois versus Gates, and I just fell in love with criminal law, and that internship solidified it. And so my goal was to come home and get a job as a prosecutor, and it took me a few years to do that. And I really only wanted to work in Waukesha County. This was my home, and I ultimately got that chance from Paul Bucher.
Could you explain, just for everybody listening out there, the difference between a circuit court judge, a municipal judge, an appellate judge? We know there's a race for Supreme Court justice going on as well. It can get a little confusing when you've got a lot of races coming up, especially as we approach the month of April. Can you give us some just general background?
Sure. So municipal courts and municipal judges deal with what I would call our lowest level of violations. They're ordinance violations or county ordinance violations that only can have a penalty of a fine or a monetary penalty. And all of those judges are elected as well. And then for the most part, anything that the municipal court does can be appealed. Sometimes there's a direct way to come from municipal court to the circuit court. So that's the next level. Most people know what a circuit court judge is. That's where most of our cases are, because like a municipal court, you're just dealing with traffic infractions or municipal theft infractions, things of that nature. The circuit court's really the entry into the judicial system. So you have civil cases, criminal cases, family cases. And so the kind of first line for anyone to come in contact would be the circuit court judges. We have court commissioners as well, but that's a whole different topic. Then, if you need to appeal a decision of a circuit court judge, you would appeal that to the Court of Appeals, and they are an error correcting court. And then, if you don't like their decision, you can appeal to the Supreme Court. And of course, the Supreme Court, there are ways to go directly to the Supreme Court. And that's our Supreme Court justices. There's 7 of them who preside over those types of cases.
Now, you have presided over 2 very high-profile cases in just the past few years. We're talking about the trial following the tragedy at the Waukesha Christmas Parade in 2021, closely followed by the Visine eyedrop homicide case, both gaining national attention, both had court TV coverage. Tell us about the process. I mean, how do those cases get assigned? And did you were you assigned the Visine case because you had already had experience with the very high-profile case?
So the Visine case was actually filed prior to. These are 2 case numbers I will never forget. So 21 CF 885 is the Visine case, and then 21 CF 1848, which, extra points if you can tell me, it's kind of funny, 1848.
State of Wisconsin.
Right. So it's just weird that was the case number. So the Visine case, if my memory is correct, I was assigned that out of the gate. The parade case was a different story. That was initially assigned to one of my colleagues who ended up very quickly recusing themselves from the case. I was the chief judge at the time, and so I'm like, who on the bench has experience with high-profile cases? Well, that's Judge Boren, so I assigned the case to him. Every defendant has the right to exercise substitution. And following the preliminary hearing in that case, the defense filed a substitution. That didn't leave a whole lot of options. And as the most senior judge at that time doing criminal cases, the case came to me.
I didn't know that they substituted out judges on that case. That's interesting.
Now that you say that, it's coming back to me because at the time of that, in 2021, I was an investigative reporter at Channel 12. And yes, many, many hearings, obviously leading up to the trial itself. But I covered the entire trial, and that was really my first time in your courtroom. The attention from that case, as you know, and you lived it, was intense for many reasons. I mean, the tragedy itself and the convicted killer, Darrell Brooks, who represented himself at trial, and I think the number one question I would hear during the trial was, how does she do it? I mean, how is she so patient with his antics? I mean, as a former prosecutor, defense attorney, judge, I'm sure you've seen quite a bit play out in a courtroom, but nothing could prepare you for Darrell Brooks. I mean, there couldn't have been a playbook for how to handle that. I mean, how did you do it?
He certainly was not the first difficult defendant that I've had in my courtroom. So I've had some experience. Leading up to his decision to waive his right to counsel, we started seeing a few things that I think gave us clues to some of the behavior that was to come. And so you prepare yourself as you would any other case. And I extra prepared when I knew things were not going well, or he was at least trying to make them not go well. And I had an excellent law clerk. Shout out to Andy Flood. He's now a full-fledged attorney working criminal defense. And he had this uncanny ability to find a case at the drop of a dime that was on point, or at least that I could draw from, whether it be a Wisconsin case. Usually it was not from Wisconsin. So it was from another jurisdiction. And what I have told people consistently who've asked me this question, I instituted a practice in my life a long time ago, and that is I get up, I take time to read my Bible, and I take time to pray. And it was especially important for me to keep that habit up during the trial, and that really grounded me. I'm a strong woman of faith, and I may not always have the answers, but he does, and he guided me through a lot of that. And even from some of the decisions that were made, I don't want to talk in depth about them. He obviously has an appeal that's processing, but it is safe to say that I created some, what I hope will be law that is upheld, some new law, at least took certain things and made it relevant to today's day and age, whether it be technology, things of that nature.
Well, speaking of appealing, the fans on court TV and people that just generally observed you in the court and how patient you were and just how you handled what would clearly seem to anyone as just very unusual circumstances. Your demeanor, if you will, in the court made us so proud in the county exec's office and across Waukesha County, because we knew the entire country was watching. And that's really, as you know, evidence of that is the fact that we got emails to our office, not only from around the country, but around the world. They didn't know who to email. So they Google Waukesha County, right? They find the county exec's address, email that you're doing an awesome job. I know you've gotten flowers and candy and all those sorts of things that were delivered. How did you, I guess first, how do you wrap your head around that? This is your job day to day. And then all of a sudden you get all this outpouring of support. Did you know that was going on during the trial? Did they withhold everything from you so you didn't think about it? Or what's your just general reaction to all that?
I did know what was happening to the extent that it was brought to my attention, because they're like, what do we do with this? And so I can't receive a gift as a judge. So a lot of the things got passed on to here, give it to this person, give it to that person, meaning it would just, give it to staff members or just put it out in the open. I mean, I got edible arrangements, flowers. We ended up giving instructions to the local florist to not even deliver them. And so they were turned away at that point. I had a plan. Had they kept coming, we would have just sent them to a nursing home or something. Right?
Had that ever have you ever had to do that before, though?
No.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, because I didn't want to be accused either, later or at any point in time, I still had to report it to the in my annual ethics filing. And so I did a big memo that was in the case. And I said, here's things that I got that I could identify. So many things we couldn't even, I got bottles of wine, for goodness sakes. I think they thought I might need it.
We're on the third floor of the courthouse. If that happens
I'll remember
again.
that.
Thanks.
So so there's an actual filing in the case about all of that and what I did with it, and I didn't open anything while that case was pending.
Well, just so you know, we received lots of emails. They were very appreciative of your overall efforts on the case. So, like I said, you did Waukesha County very, very proud.
Thank you.
And now that some time has passed since the sentencing, I saw you this year at the Waukesha Christmas Parade walking through it. I don't know if that was your first time in it, but
no.
When you did go back for the first time, what was that moment like, really coming full circle?
I had been in the parade multiple times before 2021. And in fact, I distinctly remember getting the email invite and thinking to myself, I'm not on the ballot this year. I'm not going to go. I think that was truly God. I think God wanted me to be on this case. I did attend the parade in 2022. And then in 2023 was the first time I was back. And it was enjoyable. I felt the appreciation. I walked in it again this past year, and people clap for me. They cheer for me. It's so heartwarming. Oftentimes my job is a thankless job. And so to be appreciated and to do the judiciary proud, to do the county proud, I do carry a big sense of pride with that and over that. And so it's nice to go back to the parade. I actually enjoy walking in the parades. Waukesha and Oconomowoc, their Christmas parades are outstanding. And if no one has ever walked in a parade, they should, because it's just so much fun, and especially the Waukesha parade. So many people come, they line the streets. It's the kickoff to the holiday season. It's just really enjoyable.
Fun for the whole family. Were you with the Clydesdales, right?
So that's been my tradition,
yes, okay.
is to have a horse-drawn wagon. It started out with Jerry and Judy Curry. Escaping on the year, but the first time we did it kind of together, they're good friends of ours. Judy's now passed, but we still did. We invited Jerry this past year as well, and so it's just really nice to be part of that community.
All right. Well, we're going to shift gears a little bit. Kind of keeping with the theme here of the high-profile cases. These do, though, come at a literal cost to the taxpayers.
Yeah, and we know that these cases require hundreds, if not thousands of hours to investigate, prosecute, in that case, convict the guilty party. And in Waukesha County, we're a very law and order county. We'll always be a law and order community. And we want our criminals to know that, or someone to know, if they're committing a crime here in Waukesha County, they are going to be prosecuted. And we want to see those people to be convicted and punished for their crimes and all those things. And it all comes at a significant cost. We've talked a couple of times in this podcast already about cost of mandates and what the pressure is on the county taxpayer to cover those costs. The state tells us that we have to operate a circuit court system. And of course, we want to have that law and order part of our government in Waukesha County. But like in the Waukesha Parade case, the person who committed that crime was not a Waukesha County resident. He's a Milwaukee County resident. 40% plus of our criminal cases involve non-Waukesha County residents. Our jail on a daily basis is housing somewhere between 30, 40, sometimes it tips towards 50% of individuals who are not Waukesha County residents. And it's truly, from counties across the state, but, mostly southeastern Wisconsin. So it's truly a regional issue, but the funding, from our experience, has not been really regional. So I guess my question for you is, what is your experience as a judge on this kind of growing trend of this more regional crime and significant crime from people from Milwaukee County specifically?
Before I answer that, I want just to kind of circle back to what you said about the cost to the county, because it does not escape me the significant cost that a case like the parade attack case had on the county. You'd know the numbers better than I. It's probably six figures. But what I wanted to say is that it truly was a group effort to make this case be secure, not only from a physical standpoint, but I think from an appellate standpoint. We protected our jurors. I could go on and on about the county's cooperation with that. It was phenomenal, from Dale Shaver to Shane Waggy, to the folks in the cafeteria, obviously Monica Paz, our clerk of courts, even my fellow judges. I mean, that first week of trial, we made sure no other trial was next door. That happened to be Judge Bourne's courtroom, which came in very handy, as we all know. And even to we had unprecedented number of victims. And so special accommodations, I can't fit everyone in the courtroom. I could barely fit the parties and let alone you think of all the victims, their families, and the media. And so special accommodations were made for that as well. And like I said, it's truly a group effort. And even throughout the case, just making sure all of the, I's were dotted and the T's were crossed was truly amazing from every county department that you can imagine, right? IT, facilities, of course, the sheriff's department. I mean, they put so much manpower into that to ensure the safety of the jurors, of course, the courts, of all the parties, Mr. Brooks, the state, all the victims who were there, the media, and anyone who came through the doors to try to get a seat to watch that. IT had to get involved because of all the unique things we were doing. I mean, truly, truly, when you say the county's proud of me, I want you all to know I am so proud of the county and the collaboration that I received to do one case. Now, going back to your question, there are many challenges that we are facing in the court systems. One of them is the crossover crime from the county to the east. And it's taxing. It's the violence that's there. It's the the felonies that come along with that. These aren't petty crimes that we're seeing. They're felonies. They're violent. There's lots of eluding. I mean, I could go on. And so it's very challenging. Of course, we're going to do our job as judges, me and my colleagues, no matter where the person comes from, right? Because it does affect. I mean, we're a contiguous county, so you can't help but have crossover. I mean, we get people from all the neighboring counties and then some, right? So, but you are not wrong when you say that there is that crossover, and it has a huge cost to the taxpayers of Waukesha County. And obviously, with my work as chief judge, I know a little bit about court funding. It's a very unique way to fund a court system. We're not a unified system when it comes to funding. It's about it's supposed to be 50-50 if you're looking at it. And it's probably more like 55-45 in favor of Waukesha County. There are some intangibles that the state provides that are huge, like our computer systems, right? Wisconsin Circuit Court access. You all may not know this, but it is the best in the country because it is homegrown. We don't have a vendor that we have to answer to. They can more quickly respond to security threats. The software and the applications that we utilize, whether it be the clerks or the judges, is truly, truly amazing. And then all the equipment that goes along with it. I mean, just the DAR, which is digital audio reporting. So I had a DAR reporter for the Brooks case. I would not have been able to do the trial in the length of time that I did with a steno reporter. Don't get me wrong, I love steno reporters. So for everyone out there, that's the person who's sitting there on that special machine. We now have the technology where you can have a non-steno. My court reporter happens to have been a steno. She's been with the court system like over 30 years, but came in and utilizes the DAR. And there's some huge technology advantages for a case like that allowed her when she's doing the transcripts to isolate audio. Now, it's a much more laborious process, so there's the downside to that. But from my perspective, a much more accurate record. So that's a long answer to there's some fascinating things from the state that we would not have. I mean, the state provides all that equipment. In my perfect world, before I left being a chief judge, I would always talk about, in my perfect world, I would love to see a court system that's solely funded by the state. I mean, we would bore your listeners to death if we talked about the funding sources, how when you pay a traffic ticket or a fine to the courts, it doesn't just go directly to the courts. We only get a portion of that back. Filing fees get dispersed all over. It's probably not fair, and the counties are being hit, but thank God I am in Waukesha County and not another county who doesn't take law and order as seriously as this county does. And we always seem to make it work. Waukesha County leading the way. I use that slogan all the time because it's true. We will make a way when there seems to not be one. And I so appreciate everything that, the county exec and the county board has done to support the courts. Unfortunately, usually not enough at no fault of their own.
Right. Yeah. And we struggle every year with, circuit court budget. And because we have your salary is paid for by the state of Wisconsin, DAs are paid for by the state, all that staff working within that environment, for the most part, it would be county employees. It's a county courthouse, that sort of stuff. And we've talked about this before. But, public safety will always be the number one priority in our county budget. And that means to us, it means the sheriff's department and courts and 911 dispatch and the ME's office and all of those things that are a part of the justice system. And I remember having conversations when the preparation was going on for the Brooks trial, and we had conversations with the DA, Sue Opera, at the time, saying, you worry about the justice, we'll figure out the cash. Not that it would be easy to figure out the cash, but there's no way we're not going to make sure that this goes exactly the way that it's supposed to go, with a fair and proper trial. And so it's public safety has always been a priority. And when the courts get involved, it is so challenging with the state funding really, we think, less than their commitment. And that's really what we're working on with the state legislature right now. We had State Representative Barbara Dietrich here a couple of weeks ago talking about the importance of funding for our court system. And that's something that the county executive and members of the county board are still communicating with legislators as they work through the governor's budget and start their own legislative process on the budget, to just try to emphasize the need for courts funding, because it is so critical. And having a speedy trial and quick justice is equally important. It's important to the people who are going through that process and the impact on their lives. But it's also, the longer the trial, the longer they're sitting in our jail, So, there are costs to long trials. And
Absolutely.
so there are just lots of things. It's complicated issue.
Well, Judge, we really want to get your take on the upcoming state Supreme Court race and the important local court races on the ballot April 1st coming up here in just a few weeks. And we're going to do that in a special bonus episode immediately following this one. So stay tuned to GovCast. Judge Dorow, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You can listen and subscribe to GovCast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, or watch us on YouTube.